What is up, guys? I just wanted to do a quick side-by-side comparison of the genuine SPB385 and the mod that I did based on it. So you can see just from a visual standpoint how close these two are. When Seiko released these new diver GMTs, I was really excited and I knew immediately that I wanted to pick one of these up. And then I looked at the retail price. I'll go ahead and pop in a shot here. You can see they retail for $1,700. After I seen the retail price, I thought to myself, I can definitely build one of these for a lot less money. So that's exactly what I did. Of course, I still ended up picking up the genuine Seiko, um, but it stands to reason that um, it makes sense for a lot of people to just build one because you can get very close for about 500 bucks. So I'm only going to be building a few more of these. I actually only have a few more dials. um, so if you guys want to pick one of these up, like I said, I only have a couple more of these. I actually only have three. So I have these two and then I have one more in the box, but I only have two hands. So after I build these, I won't be building anymore. I just don't feel like building the same watch that many times. Plus, I just don't feel like doing that. I'm going to move on to different builds and things like that. So I have three of these. If you would like one, email me at timelesst-shirts 10@gmail.com. I'll leave my email linked in the description. That way you can reserve one of these. It's going to be a first come, first serve basis, and they are going to be $500. These dials are not cheap. I'll pop in a shot here. You can see I pay $150 for the dials. That's what I pay for them. Then I also use genuine Seiko handsets. So you can see here, I have a few here. This is the hour hand, minute hand, and seconds hand with that little powder blue on the tip of it. Matches the dials really nicely. And then, of course, these hands are brushed, polished, and they have a facet running down the middle. These hands are not cheap either. They're $20 for a piece for each hand. So that's $60 in the handset, $150 on the dial. And then that's not even including the GMT hand, the movement, the chapter ring, the crystal, the bezel insert, the bezel, the case, the strap, the crown, any of that stuff. So, you know, it becomes pretty pricey. When I charge $500 for one of these, I'm not making any money. That's me building it and selling it to you guys at exactly what it costs for me to build it. I buy boxes to ship them in and then shipping as well. So realistically, I'm probably losing some money. I know that's not a good business model, but I love building watches. And if I can, basically break even, I'll continue to do that. So, but just real quick, I wanted to get on with the side-by-side comparison. Um, I'll go ahead and pop in a few outside shots here, and then we'll come back to the all the specs and everything like that. All right, out here in some natural light, you can see just how dynamic those dials are. They play really nicely with the lighting because they have that textured background and it makes them really dynamic. Here's a closer shot of that handset. As I mentioned, they both have the same OEM handset with that polished side and that brush side and that bevel in the center. Here from the side profile, you can see just how closely that aftermarket case matches the MM200. And I love this broad polished beveled edge on the side of the case there. Even the coin edge bezel is pretty close, matches really nicely. And you can see the triangle up at the top. Both of them are very similar, as well as all the other markings on the bezel. So, like I said, they're really close as you can get to one another. And they even have the same kind of aesthetic to the GMT hand as well. So, kind of a fired blue look. So let's go back inside and talk about the dimensions. All right, so as I mentioned in the outside shots, not only are these watches visually very comparable. The SPB 299 dial is a darker blue. If I had to pick a favorite between the lighter blue color or the darker blue, I really couldn't pick. It's just kind of an aesthetic difference. If you look at the dials, they're actually made the same way. Seiko uses the same dial press on the SPB 299 dial as they do on the SPB 385. You can see if you look closely at them, they have all the same exact markers on that, like, icy kind of tundra background there. So, visually, they're very similar. Um, if I had to pick a difference between what color I like better, I really couldn't, tell you. It's just a slightly, aesthetic difference. Bezel insert color, I chose a darker blue on this one because it matches the SPB 299 dial better. I didn't think that a gray bezel insert would match this darker blue very well. So that's the aesthetic, differences. Like I said, they have the same exact handset. Um, if I'm looking at the GMT hand, I actually prefer the one on the build better. I'll go ahead and zoom in slightly here and try to get them both in frame. If you look at the one on the SPB 385 and the right lighting, you can see it kind of looks translucent. That's more apparent in, direct sunlight when they're outside and stuff, but it almost looks like you can see through it. I'm not sure if it's because they put a few layers of lacquer on that, or maybe the GMT hand's even made out of plastic or something. But on the build, you can see it's more of a thermally blued look. I know it's not true thermally blued, it's chemically blued, but you get the same kind of look as you would if it was thermally blued. And if I'm just comparing them uh, aesthetically, I actually like the GMT hand on the build better for that reason. There's also a few things other than that I like on the build better. Mainly the date window placement. I just like it better at the 3 o'clock. I think it looks more symmetrical. You don't lose out on your 3 o'clock marker. You still get your loom plot as well. If you look at it compared to the 9 o'clock marker, they're about the same length and about the same width. So again, very symmetrical and balanced dial. Here on the SPB 385, just feels like the date window was an afterthought. They crammed it between the 4 and 5 o'clock marker, and it's crooked. If it was up to me, I would have rather them just leave it at 3, move it to 6, or just done away with it completely altogether, if I'm honest. So, not a deal breaker for me. Obviously, I still pick the watch up, but if I'm just comparing and being, picky, I prefer the one on the build better. Also, we talked about bezel inserts earlier. I like the one on the build better. I'll pop in a loom shot here. You can see that the one on the build is loomed down to the 20. More loom is always better, in my opinion. So I like that better about the build as well. Let's go ahead and get into some of the case dimensions. So here we'll go side by side here. Let me just clean some fingerprints off real quick. Both of them. They have very similar cases. You can see that they're brushed on the lug hoods. Then they have a beautiful polished bevel, then brushed in the mid case, and then they both have that same scalloped underside that's polished. So they wear really good on wrist. The MM200 case is one of my favorite cases from Seiko. So that's a really good thing. But not only are these cases visually very similar, they're also very similar in case dimensions. So let's go ahead and get into that. So we have a case thickness on the build of 15.5, and we have a case thickness on the SPB 385 of 13.5. That's a 2 millimeter difference. I know that sounds like a lot on the build, but I'd like to point out that on the build, I did not use a slim case back. So if I put a slim case back on here, I could shave about a millimeter off. It's actually about 0.8 of a millimeter. So There's actually, with a slim case back, there's only a millimeter point two difference between the case thickness, and you can't really feel that when you're wearing it on wrist. On the build, we have a lug to lug of 46 millimeters. On the SPB385, we have a lug to lug of 48 millimeters, so just slightly longer on the SPB385. Here from the side shot, you really can't tell. It looks, it almost even looks a little shorter, but it's actually a little bit longer because of the way the lugs, angle out like this. So when you measure it, it kind of goes, all the way to this tip and all the way to this tip. So you actually get about 48 millimeters. So just slightly longer on the SPB 385. Um, lug width rather, on the build is a 22 millimeter lug width. um, I really prefer that because this case is actually compatible with every SKX 007 and 009 bracelet option and strap option. So this case is from DLW Watches, and I really like that they made the lug width compatible with every SKX bracelet option and strap option. So you really have a lot of options. It's kind of a strap monster, just the same way that the SKX is. So, you really got an endless amount of options with this build. So that's why I chose this case, not only because it's very close in look and feel to the MM200, but also I prefer the lug spacing because of the strap options. On the genuine SPB385, we have a lug width of 21 millimeters. Um, Same like way you would with the MM300 and stuff. It comes on a great bracelet and comes with a really cool NATO strap. So only a millimeter difference between the lug spacing. When it comes to case diameter, we have the exact case diameter of 41.5. So these both have the same exact case diameter. I measured that from the crown to the middle of the case on both of these, and they both came out to exactly 41.5 millimeters. So that's really interesting. Like I said, the cases are very close in diameter. All the specs really. So lug spacing, lug to lug width, thickness, and they're the exact same on case diameter. So not only do they look very similar, they wear very similar. And like I mentioned, that's a really good thing because the MM200 case is probably one of my favorites from Seiko. So, uh, there's that. The crown on the build is actually slightly bigger at 7 millimeters, and the crown on the genuine Seiko is 6 millimeters. So just a slightly bigger crown. Both of them have really good traction, so um, you know, not a huge difference there. Um, so that's basically all the things that I wanted to point out about the build. There are a few things, like I mentioned, that I actually like about the build that I did better opposed to the genuine one. I know that that's likely to be the case because I'm the one who built it, right? So, let me know down in the comments if you guys like those same things about the build, the date window, the GMT hand, and all those other little things that I mentioned. One thing that I do want to mention real quick is that the build is using an NH34, so it has a 42-hour power reserve, and the SPB385 is using a 6R54, so it has a 72-hour power reserve. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The genuine Seiko SPB385 has a bigger power reserve, but the NH34 is probably one of my favorite movements from Seiko. I really love them. You know, their options are kind of endless with it. And other than power reserve, they're basically the exact same movement. If you look at a 4R series and a 6R series, they're basically the same movement. They just have a bigger power reserve. So, uh, you know, is it worth $1,700 for a couple more hours of power reserve? And I'll let that be up to you guys. Um, I really like this release from Seiko. Um, But honestly, for 500 bucks, I feel like doing a build is, a really cool option. At least you can have the option to do a build from Seiko where you can source all the parts and, get very, very close to it for a fraction of the price. Um, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section, and catch you all in the next one.